Today, we're back to basics. I'm going to show you how to install Claude globally from scratch on your machine. And I'm going to clear up 3 common misconceptions that I see people ask me, as well as questions that I'm seeing on Reddit quite a bit that are being asked repeatedly. Let's get started. All right, so we have a fresh terminal here, and what we want to do is npm install Claude Code. Now it's going to be, it might look a little different on your machine. You might have to sudo and then npm. But since I've already installed it and then uninstalled it, it's a rather quick installation for me, and I've already enabled administrative rights in the terminal. So now what we want to do here is just type in Claude. And what this is going to do is kind of take you through the onboarding. I just select default, but you can get a little specific. Now, this is, we're going to clear up one of these common misconceptions, but you always want to log in with your subscription here. And we're going to see here that it's asking to access. We just authorize. And it's that simple. Now, you might see an added step if for some reason you haven't logged in on your web browser. You might have to trigger the login, enter in, if you're a single sign-on via Google or other single sign-on methods, you just simply sign in and authorize. And now, as you can see, login successful. All right, so just letting you know, Claude can make mistakes. Only inject code you trust. And we're just going to use recommended settings and yes and proceed. And voila, we're ready to start vibe coding in the terminal. Now, for the sake of this demo, I want to use cursor to vibe code something. So before we move forward with vibe coding though, before we move forward with this demo, I really want to put an emphasis on the first misunderstanding, which is double billing. Not a lot of people know that vibe coding within the terminal or within your IDE via terminal, via Claude Code, as long as you have an active Pro or Max subscription, it utilizes that subscription. Now, you do have a 5-hour time block of a certain number of prompts that you can give it, and it's based off of how complex those prompts are, how many tokens are used for each prompt. So the number of prompts might vary, but you don't need to pay additional API usage. You do not need to fund an API account in this case, right? That's common misunderstanding number 1. Common misunderstanding number 2 is that the 5-hour limit is 5 hours of actual work. I briefly mentioned this in misunderstanding number 1. It's based on a certain number of tokens. The certain number of prompts will vary depending on how complex that prompt is. So me personally, I can easily max out Claude Code usage on my Pro subscription if I'm working on more than one thing at once. But if I'm working at a moderate pace, I'll generally use my usage up with 1 hour to spare. And I only have to wait an hour before I get started again. So it saved me so much money. Originally, I was using Replit and I was paying per 100 agent checkpoints. And I looked at the difference. I was able to save so much money just vibe coding in Claude versus using Replit. This is no shit on Replit. Replit has its use case, right? Especially if you don't want to tinker with deployment or if you have no experience with deployment. But I highly recommend, just for the cost savings benefit, learn how to deploy things yourself. Learn how to communicate with Claude. And here's the beauty of Claude. If you don't know how to do something, you can ask it how to do it, and it will give you a step-by-step to-do list on what to do to accomplish a deployment locally, a deployment on your domain, whatever your hosting provider is. It has all of the answers for you. You just need to ask, okay? And common misunderstanding number 3 is that this one you don't see as often, but you do see it quite a bit, is that Claude Code works offline. That is incorrect, okay? Every time you prompt, it reaches out to Anthropic servers to respond. So no internet, no Claude. It's as simple as that. Now, let's move on to our demo. So we've already configured. Let's open up a new project. And I'm just going to throw in demos, CC setup. create that empty folder and open up Claude. Now for Cursor, I personally use the free version. I don't pay $20 a month because I don't use their agent. I don't use their chat. I always close it and I bring down the terminal, or I bring up the terminal here. And since we've already set up Claude globally, all you have to do in any case, in any terminal, is type in Claude. And as you can see here, do you trust the files in this folder? Yes. And voila, we're ready to vibe code. I think for the sake of today's demo, let's do a personal finance budget tracker. You are a fintech expert and SaaS engineer. Please create a personal budget tracker to monitor my monthly subscriptions, overhead, investments, and leftover cash available to spend. This is a very, very simple prompt. You can probably get away with not giving it a role. I personally, just one thing I always do is you give the AI a role, and we can get a little bit more specific, but I'm just trying to keep things simple here for this demonstration. And I'm going to add on to it, make this site, or rather, let's make sure this UI looks like it was built in 2025 and not 2005. This gives a little bit of insight without getting too specific. Like, we don't want it to look too basic. We would like, some responsiveness to it, we just want a modern approach here to the UI, the look, and then the user experience, the flow, how it feels, how you operate this tool. And it's going to get to work here. So as you can see, it's already set up an index. And since this is a very simple app, all you have to do is hit index.html, show preview. Depending on your tech stack, you might have to spin up a development server. And the beauty of Claude Code is it does it for you. So in that case, you just say set up preview on port, specify the port. You can do 8002, and you go into your web browser after that, and you type in localhost 8002, for example, once it spins it up. But for the sake of today's demo, I'm pretty sure we'll be able to view the preview here. And it looks like it's already using port 3001. So you can also, if you don't want to use Cursor to view it, you can just go localhost 3001. And we're going to shift tab so that it tackles through everything autonomously here. All right, so let's see what it's done here. I've created a modern 2025 style personal budget tracker with modern UI features such as glass morphism, design with backdrop blur effects. I won't read through all of this, but as you can see here on the screen, this is everything that it did without us specifying. We gave it a general statement. Look at this. This is slick looking. Wow. Okay. So source, let's say job, and we're going to say this is, 6,000 for the sake of this demonstration. And yes, we got to clean things up a bit. This is cut off here, and this is where you vibe. This is where one little trick that I do quite a bit, if I don't want to explain too much, you can take a screenshot and open up, go grab your image, and you drag it in, okay? And let's clean up the modules. As you can see, in this image, the row is restricted by the width of the module, cutting off part of the functions. And it's going to do its thing to fix that. Now, one thing we can always do is say, hey, make it a 2 module per row so that it creates a wider kind of like stance for, 2 of the blocks. I'm not going to do that. I want to try to kind of keep it simple. And it can see the issue based off of analyzing the screenshot. So it's going to do its best. And it's not always perfect. Sometimes you have to kind of go back and forth with it. Okay, but now the amount is messed up here, right? So the width of the modules are too small. Let's place fixed overhead on the second row below to make the layout 2 by 2 to help increase width and give more space. And it's going to do its thing. Look at that. Much, much, much better. I'm not going to lie. I've built a few budget trackers, just demos using different agentic AI, using different AIs. And I gotta say, I love this one. I might actually use this because I'm guilty. I'm still using an old spreadsheet in Excel because it's perfect. It works. I have multiple tabs. But one thing I can add here is, add tabs to kind of, and we're gonna do that in today's demo, just for the sake of having some fun. So what we're gonna also do, I'm a big DraftKings player, so let's just say my income's an additional 6,000 in profit. And we're gonna add in, for example, Claude Pro. And that's 20. And let's say Perplexity. That's another 20. And it's doing all the calculations, investments. So I think another thing we would do is add savings or somehow combine savings and investments. So savings, and we're gonna say we're gonna put away 50% of our total 12,000. So that's 6,000 every month that we put away. It marks it as total expenses though. So these are things that we would have to fine tune, right? But I mean, look at how simple it was to spin this up and you can just run this locally. I mean, this is beautiful. I gotta say, I don't think I'd deploy this. Let's add a tab function at the top so we can track expenses across different perspectives. For example, personal, business, number 1, business, number 2, and we'll keep it at that. And let's see how good it does, just with the simplest of prompts. I could have gone more in depth for sure. Okay, let's see how it's kind of still working here. It does have a lot to implement. It's doing a multi-profile data management right now. So already a bug here. Oh, okay, we can just add. That's good. So we'll do Clearmud. And there's some kind of like this tab feature, I think, is we want to move that line to the bottom. But let's just test 6,000, and we'll go Clearmud, SAS, 12,000 or 1,200, 12,000. All right, bam. So it does separate it. One thing I'm noticing though is it kind of carries over the budget. The monthly income should be specific. All of these options, I think, should be specific based off of what tab we're in. So we want to specify that. Almost there. All underlying info should be specific to each tab. When I go between tabs and profiles, I see line items for the other tab. It's not segregated like it should be. And that should be enough for it to fix it. Let's see here. Yep, there we go. Make sure the tab maintains its own completely separate data. Okay, look, it's already working. Just came in here to test. And this is great. I mean, one thing I would probably change is maybe move the overview to the top and then find a way to organize these a little bit better. But for the sake of today's demo, I think we're at a great stopping point. And that's how easy it was to install Claude Code and build a personal budget tracker. Just to summarize this entire video, one subscription covers all costs, a 5-hour limit equals a token limit, and cloud-based. You need the internet to run Claude Code. So I'm not an AI expert. I'm building in public and sharing what actually works. If you'd like to see me make a particular video around a specific topic, drop a comment below. Let me know who you are, what you do, who your target audience is, and what your question is, and I will add a video to my queue, custom tailored just for you. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. My name is Marcelo. This is Clearmud, and clarity matters.